Hello students, this is your course on content marketing. In this video on developing relevant content, we are going to talk about freelance versus in-house resources for content. Let's begin by comparing in-house and freelance resources for content generation. First of all, from the budget or cost perspective, in-house resources are costly for short-term or small scope campaigns, but they turn out to be cost-effective for long-term and mature campaigns. Majorly because the initial cost required in setting up a content marketing team and a content development team is very high. It includes hiring as well as employee or staffing management costs as well. And then there are the additional costs of acquiring the right tools and platforms for creating and publishing the content. Compared to that, freelance resources are very cost effective for short term or small scope campaigns because you don't have to bear the hiring and staff maintenance costs, and project to project based payout is required. However, they can become comparable in cost as the amount of work increases to in house resources, and at times even become more expensive. Then, when it comes to the matter of control that you can have on a channel or on the resource, then definitely in house resources offer better control and regular communication is possible. As a result, the consistency in content is very high. The in house resources are also better aware of the brand and its story and the kind of content that needs to be developed. On the other hand, when we're talking about freelance resources, the amount of control is less, and only planned communications, which are sporadic in nature, are possible because freelance resources cannot be available full time for internal discussions as in house resources can be. As a result, the consistency of communication may be lesser when compared to in house resources, and the awareness of the brand, its story, and its voice can also be lower. However, if freelancers are associated with the company for a long time, then they can pretty much act as in house resources and deliver the same kind of consistent and aware kind of content. Then, when it comes to the matter of the changes in the content campaign or the iterations required to improve the content developed or work upon the old content that needs to be repurposed, it's very easy to do that with in-house resources. If you already have an inventory of content, and if you have a knack for making last minute changes because perhaps the decision making is distributed amongst various stakeholders, then having an in-house team makes more sense. Because when it comes to freelance resources for content, clear guidelines are usually required at the beginning of the project, and there is limited scope for iterations because if you will increase the number of iterations beyond a certain decided value, then additional costs will be incurred, and definitely it's possible that you may land up changing the vendor itself if you're not happy with the kind of work. Then, when it comes to the updation of skills and the use of tools and technologies as well as processes which are considered as best practices in the industry, in house resources may be a little restricted and maybe at a back foot over there because they are limited by whatever tools and technologies are available in the company or the budget allowed for them to procure tools and technologies by the company. At the same time, the process which is followed for content generation, editing, and publishing, as well as promotion by the company, is what your in-house resources are likely to follow. But when you compare it with your freelance resources, they have a wider exposure to the latest tools and technologies as well as the industry best practices. They have to stay up to date to these things because at the same time they may be handling multiple clients and therefore are more aware of the best possible way to generate relevant content for you. So that is where it is a definite advantage that freelance resources have. And if you're trying to establish yourself as a thought leader and the generator of the best, most advanced content in your industry, then it makes sense to have freelancers on your team as well. Then in-house resources can also have tunnel vision or maybe myopic when it comes to your own content campaign. They focus more on your brand, they focus more on the niche that they are thinking about from the very beginning of the campaign launch. And at times they can ignore something trending, something good that is happening in other industries. And since they will ignore such activities, such things, they would fail to emulate them in the company's own campaigns. Whereas when you compare freelancers, they are likely to be more diverse, more versatile, and have a more diverse exposure, as well as a specialized way of handling various industries. The content requirements, which could be industry specific, but at the same time they will have learnings from various avenues which they can bring to the table, along with new creative ideas for your content campaign also. So this is again another advantage which you can have by having freelancers as part of your content management team. So what is recommended is to combine both in-house as well as freelance resources for content generation, and have the two types of content providers, content editors, designers, developers ready to work on each campaign for maximum possible impact, and in order to avoid the negatives of each resource and capitalize on the positives of each resource. When it comes to internal teams, the workflow becomes very unidirectional and systematic. It begins by idea generation through brainstorming, research, assignments, and are then decided that who from the internal team will be handling what kind of content development. Then writing or content development happens for different formats by different team members. It is generally reviewed by the editor or the content marketing manager, approved, and then published. So all the activities are internal to the department without any dependence on an external resource. Whereas when it comes to external team, completely ideas may be pitched by the freelancing team or the agency team. They have to be approved by the internal team. Then the writing process begins by the freelancing team. Then the review and editing happens by the internal team. Publishing happens once the final draft is submitted by the external team or the freelance team. So a combination of these two can therefore be something that is a good fit for any content marketing team, as it would reduce the burden and pressure on the internal team for keep coming up with new ideas, keep coming up with assignments for populating the content calendar. And at the same time, you can have new resources for fresh and creative ideas from the external marketplace. So that's about freelance and in-house resources and how they figure out in your content development, of course relevant content development planning and execution. Next up we'll talk about how design supports content. Until then, thank you.